They fired me with an email. Exactly 6 o'clock I'm in. No meeting, no warning. Just 13 cold lines sent to the work inbox I had dedicated myself to for 5 years. I was standing by the coffee machine when the notification popped up on my phone. 3 seconds. That's all it took to watch my entire world collapse. 3 days. I had only taken 3 days off to bury the one man who always believed I was meant for something greater, my father. My name is Emma Blake. I'm 36, and until this morning, I was the regional team lead in operations at Ridgeline Freight Solutions, the top logistics firm on the West Coast. I'm not someone who gives up easily, but even I didn't expect that the final reward for saving this company from collapse would be a cold, impersonal email that erased my worth in a handful of lines. The reason? Lack of presence during a critical phase. Apparently, my father's death happened to fall right in the middle of a critical phase, though no one ever defined what that actually meant. I didn't cry, not even a sharp breath. Just the ticking of the office clock and the morning sun filtering through the windows as I sat down, opened that email, and read it over and over, like repetition might erase it. I still remember that Monday, my first day back after the funeral. I arrived early, turned on the lights for the entire Seattle floor myself, determined to catch up. I thought if I moved fast enough, worked hard enough, maybe the grief would slow down. As I made coffee, I glanced at a photo of our team from the April retreat. Everyone was smiling. I was in the center, hand on Kayla's shoulder, the youngest logistics associate. They weren't just coworkers. They were my second family. I logged into my computer. The first email was from Douglas Carver, my direct supervisor, the same person who approved my bereavement leave just a week earlier. Subject line, personnel changes. I clicked, Emma, please clear your desk by 5 p.m. today. HR will guide you through the exit process. We require people who prioritize work, especially during strategic periods. I hope you understand. Douglas. I read it 3 times. Each time, a different wave surged through my chest. Shock, rage, then numbness. 3 days. That's all I took. I didn't cut corners. I didn't leave things undone. I had documented project progress, arranged coverage. My father died from a sudden stroke. One midnight call, a 4-hour flight back to Colorado, and a rushed funeral in the icy fall. Yeah, I didn't scream. I didn't storm off to confront Douglas like in some corporate drama. I just took a screenshot of the email, forwarded it to my personal inbox, then quietly began removing framed photos from the wall behind me. One was a crayon drawing from Kayla's daughter, given to me on my birthday. It had hung next to my most prized certificate. By 8 o'clock IMing, the office started to fill. I was rolling up an old scarf to pad the bottom of a box when Maya from finance stopped dead in her tracks. Emma, where are you going? I've been let go. What? For taking 3 days off to bury my father. Maya's mouth dropped open. She said nothing, just stood there, then quietly pulled up a chair beside me. She was the first. Then came Marcus from IT. Then the ops team. Then Kayla. One by one, they gathered around, their faces shifting from shock to fury. Is this a joke? Marcus asked. Douglas literally cheered last week's numbers because of your report, Kayla added, trembling. I shook my head. No need to cause a scene. It's done. They wouldn't leave. That's when Douglas Carver appeared down the hallway. Expressionless, hands in his pockets, voice flat. Everyone, please return to your workstations. We have deadlines to meet. I stood up, looked him dead in the eye. Then maybe you should meet one too. Redefining humanity for senior leadership. Silence. Douglas said nothing, just clenched his briefcase and walked away. I closed the final box, holding it close to my chest the way my father once held me when I failed my college entrance exam at 18. The last time he looked at me without disappointment. This time, he'd be proud. I stepped out of Ridgeline Freight Solutions into a gray Seattle morning. No rain. No one stopped me, but But I knew this wasn't the end. I had lost a job, but maybe I was about to find my life again. I thought I'd leave quietly, but that silence was ripped apart by the rising anger of the very people who'd called me Emma with respect and warmth for years. Within 30 minutes of Douglas's retreat, my old desk had become the emotional core of the entire 8th floor. And the 42-year-old contract manager, who always brought home-cooked lunches and shared stories about his twin daughters, walked in, saw me with the box, and froze. Don't tell me they actually did it. Yeah. 3 days? Just because you took 3 days to attend your father's funeral? I nodded. His eyes burned with a rage I'd never seen before. Then Jenna from Customer Support 29, who once cried when I covered her work during her maternity leave, set her coffee on my desk and went pale. Emma, no, I thought you were just back early. I came back and got fired. But you're the one holding this whole team together. They don't get to. I placed the final frame, our team at last year's Christmas party, into the box. My hands trembled, but my voice was steady. They have the power, just not the decency. Within 15 minutes, nearly the entire ops team had gathered. Marcus, the quiet, analytical data analyst, slammed his fist on the table. I swear, I want to throw the server at him. Kayla, 25, the youngest, stood right next to me, her eyes red and wet. I hate them. They don't deserve one more second of you. But I hate that this is how you have to go. I gently squeezed her shoulder. I'm okay. And you, Kayla, you'll do great things, with or without me. Travis, the long-haul logistics coordinator, tapped the side of the cardboard box I was sealing. I never told you this, but if it weren't for you, I'd have quit in my first month. He took a deep breath. I learned perseverance from the way you handled crisis after crisis, and now they're tossing you out like defective inventory. I looked up at them, 12 people standing around me like a human shield. No one spoke, just eyes, full of anger, helplessness, and a kind of loyalty I once believed only existed in blood families. The sound of heels clicked from behind. Nat Lehihenya knew the head of the HR, appeared, holding a folder, her expression blank. Emma, I'm here to finalize the termination paperwork. But before she could take another step, Jenna stepped in front of her. You don't see anything wrong with this? I'm just following protocol. What kind of protocol fires someone for burying their father? Corporate procedure or psychological warfare? I stepped up to Natalie, my voice low. Don't blame the process. I saw the email, Natalie. Douglas signed it. There's no mistake here. And I don't need another hollow apology. Natalie said nothing. She set the papers on the edge of the desk and walked away. No one stopped her. No one even looked after her. I sealed the last box, stood tall, and adjusted my coat. My eyes scanned every face. I smiled, not because I was happy, but because I knew this moment would stay with them for a long time. Don't let this break you. I don't need anyone to fight my fight. I just need you all to live with more humanity than the system we worked under. Marcus exhaled sharply. Emma, I can't let this go. They need to be held accountable. Not now, Marcus. Some battles aren't won with rage. I walked toward the door. Everyone stepped aside, forming a quiet corridor of farewell. No words, no photos, no applause, just silence, more powerful than any goodbye. Ben handed me a folded piece of paper. I know you're not one to look back, but if you need anything at all, you can call us. I took it, nodded. Thank you, but I think I'll be okay. Somewhere else with a new beginning. As I pressed the elevator button, Kayla rushed up and hugged me tightly. They're going to regret this, you know? We all know they will. The elevator doors closed with a sigh. I hugged the box to my chest like it was a piece of myself being cut away. Painful, but necessary. Outside, Seattle was damp like every morning. But this time, I didn't feel cold. I didn't know where I was headed. But I knew one thing for sure. I wasn't coming back. And someday, they'd have to face the consequences of losing people they never bothered to value. Less than an hour after I left the Ridgeline Freight Solutions parking lot, my phone rang. The screen lit up with a familiar name that made my heart pause for a second. Hank Fleming. We had met 2 years ago at a logistics conference in San Diego. I gave a talk on route optimization at Ridgeline, and Hank was the first to stand up and applaud. I picked up. Emma Blake, I answered calmly. I just heard. News travels fast, especially dumb ones, Hank said bluntly. You free this afternoon? I paused, freer than ever. At 3:00 p.m. that same day, I walked into the Vertex Transport Systems headquarters in downtown Seattle. The building was full of natural light, glass walls, open layouts, greenery lining the hallways, everything the suffocating mechanical environment at Ridgeline was not. Hank was waiting at the entrance, tall, silver-bearded, eyes sharp as ever. Emma, he said, shaking my hand firmly. I should have called sooner. We sat in a small but cozy meeting room overlooking Puget Sound. Hank opened his laptop, then closed it after a few seconds. Honestly, I don't need slides, I need people. I raised an eyebrow. People? For what role? Regional Director, Pacific Division. I want you to take over all West Coast logistics operations. I sat upright. That's 2 levels above my old title. And you've earned it. I've been watching you for a long time, Emma. Your rerouting model last year saved Ridgeline over $2 million. 0 cents. Don't think I missed that. I smiled faintly. The issue is I'm bound by a non-compete agreement. I already have a copy, Hank replied without hesitation. Vertex legal team says the clause is vague and overly broad, given that you were terminated, especially for something so inhumane. Enforcement is near impossible. And if Ridgeline tries to sue me, we'll cover all legal fees, simple as that. He leaned in. I'm not buying your loyalty, Emma. I'm investing in a level of talent and integrity I haven't seen matched. I was silent for a few seconds, not because of his praise, but because I realized I'd forgotten what it felt like to be trusted. Hank pulled out a leather folder and slid it across the table. This is the formal offer. A 38% salary increase over your previous income, plus project bonuses, stock options, and full authority to build your own team. I stared at... Why me? Because I need someone to lead, not to get crushed under people obsessed with KPIs and empty titles. And I heard you walked out today with your entire team behind you, true? I didn't answer. Just nodded slightly. Hank leaned back, arms crossed. I don't know if you believe in second chances, but Vertex is ready to give you one from the start. I stood and walked to the glass wall, looking out over the vast gray moon sea. My father once told me, you don't need to fight to stay somewhere you've been pushed out of, you just need to keep going and be so good they regret losing you. I turned back. I need time to think. This is a big step. I understand. You have 3 days. But if you say yes, I want you to start next Monday. On the way home, Seattle faded into dusk. The streets slid by under soft amber lights, and my mind drifted between 2 shores of decision. It wasn't that I doubted my abilities. It was that, for the first time in years, I felt like I had a choice. And I was going to choose the path that would have made my father proud. Friday night, I sat alone in a quiet bar in Queen Anne, the same corner I always went to when I needed space to think. A glass of whiskey sat on the wooden table, slowly collecting condensation, and my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Text from Jenna. Emma, can we meet? It's urgent. Then Ben, we need to talk, all of us. None. Then Marcus, Travis, Kayla, Carmen, Lily, each name flashing like a call to action. And I knew I couldn't ignore it. The next morning, I arrived at a small cafe on the corner of Fremont at exactly 8:00 a.m. They were already there, all 7 of them, gathered around 2 tables pushed together, eyes turning toward me in unison as I walked in. No one said a word until I put my bag down and pulled out a chair. Ben was the first to speak. We all turned in our resignations together yesterday at 5:00 p.m. I froze. All 7 of you? Jenna nodded. And we all applied to Vertex. I looked at each familiar face, people who had stood beside me through sleepless nights, crisis calls, missed holidays. They weren't just coworkers. They were comrades, my wall of defense, and now they chose to walk with me again. You guys, you're risking your careers. Better than staying at a place where loyalty gets thrown out because someone dares to love their family, Kayla said, her voice firm, without a trace of hesitation. Marcus let out a bitter laugh. Dan doesn't even say your name anymore when talking to the team, just calls you her, like you never existed. I sighed, running my hand through my hair, feeling a heavier weight than the whiskey from the night before. There's no guarantee Vertex will take you. Hank only said he'd consider you if there were openings. You don't have to worry about that, Lily said, pulling out her phone and showing me the screen. This is the confirmation from their hiring portal. We've all been invited to interviews next week. I let out a quiet laugh. You're all really taking a leap. If it's for the right person, it's worth it, Travis said, his deep brown eyes steady. You're the reason this team worked. They think losing you is no big deal? Just wait. I took out my phone and sent a short text to Hank. We need to talk. Urgent. 3 hours later, I was in his office at Vertex. Hank stood by the window, hands in his pockets, the light from Puget Sound reflecting off his sharp features. Paul spoke first. I'm guessing you've heard. I nodded. All 7 of them. They quit. Because of me. Not because of you, Emma, because of how you led. There's a difference. I sat down. I have one condition, Hank. If I join Vertex, I want my team to be seriously considered. No special treatment, but no bias because of where they came from. Hank sat across from me, eyes steady. They already have interviews. I've read their resumes. If they work the way you described, then we won't just consider them, we'll compete for them. He smiled. Honestly, I should thank Douglas for pushing you out of Ridgeline. I didn't smile back. Don't thank cruelty. Thank the comeback. That afternoon, as I left Vertex, a light rain started to fall over the city. I stopped by the old flower shop my dad used to love and bought a bouquet of white chrysanthemums. The flower he always said was as tough as persistence. I didn't know if what came next would go smoothly, but I knew I wasn't alone. And this time, if I had to rebuild, I wouldn't be building alone. Monday morning, exactly 7:43 a.m., my phone rang. I was making coffee, getting ready for my first day at Vertex as Regional Director of Northwest Operations, when the screen lit up with a name I thought I'd erased forever. Paula Reese, Regional Manager, Ridgeline. I let it ring 3 times before answering. Emma Blake speaking. Good morning, Emma. It's Paula. Her voice sounded rough, laced with something I'd never heard in it before, uncertainty. I recognize your voice, I said, trying to stay polite, but keeping my tone cool. What's this about? A short silence. I just received 7 resignation letters, your entire team, all at once, and I think we need to talk. I said nothing. The coffee machine clicked in the background, the smell of fresh grounds filling the kitchen. I poured a cup and walked to the window, watching the city slowly wake up. Emma, Paula continued, I've reviewed everything. Douglas firing you without informing me, without a leadership meeting, that was a complete overreach. I would have never approved that. But you didn't stop it, I said evenly. And now that everything's falling apart, you're calling me. Her voice softened. I admit, I trusted the wrong people. I said nothing, letting her sit with the silence left behind by the absence of my team. Mama, I want to invite you back with a 15% salary increase and a formal company apology. I almost laughed. You think money and a few words can undo how you treated me, my father, the people who stood beside me for 5 years? We're in serious crisis. Clients are complaining, systems are failing. Wilson is threatening to pull his contract. I know. Because they called me. I could almost hear her jaw clench over the phone. You're deliberately. No, I'm doing my job at a different company, one that values people. Paula sighed. We can pay more than Vertex. This was never about the money, Paula. So what would it take for you to come back? You'd need a time machine. Silence. Then her voice, dry and brittle. You're really gonna say no? Heidi did the moment you didn't speak up for me. Everything after that is just consequence. I ended the call with a polite thank you, but when I put the phone down, I didn't feel relief. I felt justice. 2 hours later, I was back at the Vertex office. Hank Fleming was waiting by the door, as if he already knew the call had happened. Did Summit Edge call? Paula. Those 7 resignations threw them into chaos. Just as I expected. I handed him the morning bulletin from the Transportation Industry Network. Ridgeline Logistics suspends contract renewal with Wilson Group. Reason: sudden personnel changes. Hank nodded. Emma, you may not realize this, but what you just did, refusing to go back even when they came crawling, is a powerful statement. In this industry, a well-timed no weighs more than any contract. I sat at my new desk, sunlight hitting the Vertex logo etched on the glass. It wasn't the biggest office I'd ever worked in, but it was the first place where I truly felt heard. My phone buzzed again. This time, a message from Kayla. We just walked out of Ridgeline. Feels like stepping out of a nightmare. Send Ben. If you need a battle-ready team starting tomorrow, we're it, all 7, no hesitation. I closed my eyes for a moment. That pain of loss was still there, my father, the old job, years of being overlooked. But it no longer felt like an open wound. It was proof I'd survived. And Ridgeline? They had just learned an expensive lesson. Not everyone who leaves is lost. Some leave to lead. That Wednesday, exactly 1 week after Paula's call, 7 chairs were filled in the interview room at Vertex Transport Systems' Seattle branch. Marcus went first. He wore a crisp black shirt, far neater than his usual style. No one noticed, but I knew it was his lucky shirt, the one he wore only when he meant business. Jenna followed. She didn't smile as much as usual, but her eyes lit up when she saw me in the hallway. You thought I'd be nervous? She winked. I'm here to prove what they tossed was real gold. Then came Travis, Kayla, Ben, Lily, and Carmen, each bringing their own energy, their own irreplaceable style. They were puzzle pieces I'd once brought together to form the beating heart of an entire system. I wasn't allowed to be in the interviews. Vertex internal hiring policy was strict. But I knew one thing for certain. None of them needed me to vouch for them. They had the skills to walk through any door, not because they worked under me, but because they built the results we once achieved. 3 days later, Hank called me into the meeting room. I got 5 minutes, he asked, but I knew this would take longer. I sat down and watched as Hank placed a folder on the table. On top were 7 offer letters, each stamped with the silver Moo Vertex logo. I just signed them, he said. All 7 are in, and not because Emma said they were good. I know, I replied. I've never seen a team where each member has such a strong resume and complements each other this perfectly. He pushed the folder toward me. Welcome your team back, this time on Vertex ground. The following week, my team began their new chapter. Kayla laughed when she saw the logistics system here was 3 times more advanced than Ridgeline's. It's like going from a motorbike to a spaceship. Then don't forget how to drive, I teased. No worries, I've been flying without wings for 2 years. The spaceship just makes it easier. Marcus rebuilt the dashboard system in his own way. More efficient, more intuitive, miles ahead of what Vertex had been using. Jenna calmed a high-profile client in just 48 hours. One who was hesitant about switching contracts from Ridgeline to Vertex. Travis took over Northwest shipping operations and, within 3 days, optimized routes that saved over $17,000, 0 cents per month. Ben, no longer stuck in a back office role, became head of budgeting and planning, Hank remarked in a meeting. I don't know why Ridgeline ever stuck this guy behind a desk. Lily collaborated with engineering to revamp the cross-state order system. Her idea was praised by the CTO as simple yet revolutionary. And Carmen, once called too quiet, was handed a new logistics division that needed restructuring, after she identified 3 critical issues in her very first week that the operations team had completely missed. Friday morning, I stood at the back of the meeting room, watching them laugh and chat with new colleagues, no longer tense or guarded, like they had been at Ridgeline. I walked over to Kayla, rested a hand on her shoulder. How do you feel? For the first time, I don't feel like I have to prove I'm valuable. People see it. I turned to Marcus. Any regrets? Seriously? He chuckled. You walked out of a burning building. We followed. Regret? Only that we didn't do it sooner. I laughed, feeling the weight lift piece by piece. They didn't need me to shine. All I had to do was create the space where they could be seen for who they truly are. That night, Hank texted me one simple line. I didn't just hire one person. I got a priceless team. I sat in my private office, city lights from Seattle glowing behind the glass. Beside me was a cactus, the first gift my team gave me back at Ridgeline. It was still alive, still standing strong. Just like me, and just like them. We weren't broken. We just needed the right place to root and rise again. 2 weeks after my entire team officially started at Vertex, an anonymous email popped into my inbox. Subject line, Summit Edge is bleeding. I opened it. This one single line leaked from the internal industry bulletin. Wilson Group officially transfers all contracts to Vertex, citing a severe loss of confidence in Ridgeline's current management. I didn't need to read more. That sentence said it all. Wilson was one of Ridgeline Freight Solutions' top 3 strategic clients. Losing them meant losing nearly 25% of quarterly revenue and severing the key link that kept their federal contract chain intact. For the next 7 days, I didn't need to seek out the news. The news came to me. Today, Paula Reese resigned, citing internal pressures no longer aligned with career direction. Thursday, Dan Weaver, the one who signed off on my termination email, was suspended pending an investigation by the Independent Audit Board. Friday, Ridgeline released a statement saying they were undergoing restructuring and considering merger options. And by the following Monday, official industry finance networks confirmed the news. Meridian Shipping acquired Ridgeline at just 40% of last year's valuation. I was standing in a small meeting room at Vertex, a cup of tea still in hand, not yet lifted to my lips. Carmen walked in, holding her phone out. I nodded. I did. I'm guessing Dan didn't expect it to happen this fast. The Carmen smirked. He expected fallout, just not a 20-storm freefall. I said nothing more. I didn't need to. 2 days later, Barbara Kent, a former HR staffer from Ridgeline, called me from a personal number. Answered out of curiosity. Emma, I know I probably shouldn't be calling, but I think you deserve to know this. I leaned on the balcony railing outside my office, voice calm. I'm listening. The executive board has officially asked Dan Weaver to justify all personnel decisions made in the past 12 months. Your case in particular is being reviewed as a violation of internal humanitarian policy. I said nothing. You're not going to sue, are you? Barbara asked hesitantly. I don't need to sue to prove I was right. They're doing that themselves. Barbara sighed. I left Ridgeline last week. After seeing how they treated you and the entire team, I couldn't keep pretending. I smiled, truly smiled. Their congratulations on stepping out at the right time. Thank you, Emma. You helped a lot of us realize our worth. The call ended, but Barbara's words stayed with me all afternoon. Friday, during Vertex quarterly executive meeting, Hank stood at the front of the room, holding a financial report. This quarter, the Northwest region posted 32% growth, the fastest across the entire Vertex network. We secured 3 major contracts from direct competitors, including Wilson Group. He turned to me. Emma, this isn't just about skill. It's about trust. You built this team with fairness and integrity, two things this industry sorely lacks. I didn't speak. I just nodded, one quiet, heavy nod. That evening, I received an email from Dan Weaver. Subject, one last thing. I opened it, skimming through the lines. Emma, I don't know if you'll read this. I'm not denying what I did, but I'm starting to understand, not because I lost my job, but because I lost the people I didn't know how to keep. If there's one thing I want to say, it's this. I'm sorry, and I hope someday you'll forgive me. I closed my laptop. Together. No, not today. Not because I'm still angry, but because I don't need forgiveness to move forward. I forgave myself the day I walked out of that building and never looked back. Today, Ridgeline is a name swallowed by a larger power. Dan vanished from the logistics industry roster. And us, my team and I, we're rewriting the story, this time on a clean slate with the pen in our own hands. And if anyone asks how I feel about Ridgeline's downfall, I'd say, not triumph, but peace. Because justice doesn't need applause. It just needs to arrive right on time. Exactly 1 year after I received that termination email, I sat in the largest glass-walled meeting room at Vertex Transport Systems. No longer as a regional director, but as executive vice president of Northwest Operations. I still remembered how I felt on that fateful day, how the cold in my chest was deeper than the Seattle air. But now, looking out at the city from the 22nd floor, I saw only one thing. I survived, and more than that, I was reborn. The quarterly report sat in front of me, the numbers impossible to ignore. 31% growth, 19% drop in operational costs. The three largest clients of Ridgeline, now strategic partners of Vertex. Hank stood at the end of my presentation, raising his coffee cup. You've done something this entire industry will talk about for a long time. Emma, your team didn't just save a region. They redefined how operations can run, with respect, not fear. I nodded. No flowery words, no grand speeches. I didn't need them, because what we built was loud enough on its own. That afternoon, back at my office, I saw a small cardboard box placed at my door. No name, no sender. I opened it. Inside was the old cactus, the little plant Jenna and Kayla had gifted me on our third Christmas at Ridgeline. Maybe alive? Stronger now, thicker leaves, taller stem, but still the same plant. There was a note inside, written in black ink. I saved this before the office was cleared out, thought now was the right time to send it home. Barbara. I stared at it for a long time. Something small yet heavy with everything I once carried. I placed it on the windowsill where the sunlight poured in each morning. A symbol not just of survival, but of what can never be killed, willpower. A month later, our whole team had dinner at an Italian restaurant by the pier. Travis had just been promoted to head of interstate operations. Jenna had received a national award for customer care excellence. Marcus, now lead data analyst, was no longer the quiet guy who only spoke when asked, but the strategic voice guiding West Coast forecasting. I looked at each of them. No one was the same as before. I raised my glass. 1 year ago, we were thrown out of what we once called home. Now, we've rebuilt from cracked bricks. And I'm proud, not because we fought back, but because we chose to grow. Ben clinked glasses with me. They took our jobs, but they gave us the chance to live up to our potential. Carmen smiled softly. You know, Kayla said, her face glowing, the day I left Ridgeline, I thought I was a failure. Not anymore. In said, as she smiled brightly, now I know, wherever you are, injustice doesn't stand a chance. We laughed. The kind of laugh shared by people who've walked through fire, without letting it burn away their dignity. 3 weeks later, I returned to Bend, Oregon, my hometown, where my father used to take me to the Deschutes River every Sunday morning. When I was a child, he'd often say, "The water always flows. Your job is to learn to stand like stone, not chase every swirl." I stood by the riverbank we once walked. The water was still clear, still strong, still moving forward, just like life. I was no longer the trembling girl afraid of failure. I was a woman who had risen from betrayal and not only survived, but now stood brighter than ever. I knelt down and dropped a stone into the river. Dad, I didn't cry when I lost my job, but today I cry because I've gone farther than even you dreamed for me. The water kept flowing. The stone remained still, and so did I. Endings aren't where we stop. They're where we realize that all we lost was only clearing space for something better. Emma's story is a powerful reminder that sometimes what feels like devastating loss is actually the turning point that opens life's biggest doors. Being fired didn't break her, it propelled her. She redefined her worth and rebuilt everything from the ground up. In a world that can be unfair, it was courage, honesty, and a commitment to doing what's right that helped Emma not just endure, but shine brighter than ever. What do you think about Emma's journey and the choices she made? Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to follow the channel so you never miss another moving, powerful story about life and family.